Our federal courts are probably one of the only backstops against this lawless Trump administration, and because they are getting shut down so often, we are now seeing Republicans out there trying to attack the judiciary, coming out and saying things like all these judges, they're just a bunch of liberals, they're just a bunch of activists, they're just a bunch of crazy Democrats, and their latest argument has been that all of these nationwide injunctions, well, they're just flat out unconstitutional. But all a nationwide injunction means is that a judge has the power to issue his order across the nation. That way the Trump administration can't continue breaking the law in different parts of the country. And I want to go ahead and take a look at this hearing about these nationwide injunctions. And in particular, I want to look at this interaction between Josh Hawley and Kate Shaw. Kate Shaw is a constitutional law professor. She is a co-host to the Strict Scrutiny podcast, which is very, very good. I highly recommend. And I'll go ahead and start off with this clip, which just kind of gives you a flavor of how this conversation went down, where Josh Hawley is just kind of berating the witness. And then later, Kate Shaw just lays the absolute smackdown on Josh Hawley. So if you guys do appreciate my work, please do remember to subscribe.
Don't you think it's a little bit anomalous for courts to be going out there and binding parties who are not before them? I mean, is that something we want to encourage?
Senator, I think that judges have been issuing rulings that impact non-parties since Marbury versus Madison, right?
So you're not concerned about it?
I'm not. I absolutely think that they can be abused, and
wait a minute. You were very concerned about it just a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
You said in response to a nationwide injunction on the Biden FDA's Mifepristone rules, and I quote, "This injunction's a travesty for principles of democracy, notions of judicial impartiality, and the rule of law."
I think I've been consistent today. That was issued by Judge Kaczmarek in a single judge division. They're a problem. Those are a problem.
With him personally? Wait,
no.
Your testimony is if it's issued by Judge Kaczmarek, it's bad?
No, sir.
It's personal?
That is not my testimony.
Is the problem with the injunction? You were criticizing the universal injunction here.
Issued by a judge in a single judge division. I've been very clear today that those are a problem.
By a Republican judge in a Republican division, then it's bad.
No, Senator.
Otherwise, it's fine.
No, Senator. I think that single judge divisions are a problem.
What is the principle?
So do you see how he's just being a grade A asshole? He asks a question and then doesn't give her enough time to actually answer the question. Then he tries to character assassinate her, trying to say that, oh, when a Republican stopped, that's okay. But when Biden is getting stopped, well, that must be unconstitutional. But that is not even the problem here. The case they're referring to is the Mifepristone case, which was brought by a whole bunch of anti-abortion doctors. They went and judge shopped down to this Judge Kaczmarek in Texas, a crazy right-wing lunatic down in Texas. And even when that case got up to the Supreme Court, they said that the case shouldn't have even been brought because those doctors did not even have standing. And the whole case itself was as flimsy as could be. When you're talking about Donald Trump, you're talking about somebody who tried to end birthright citizenship with an executive order. These things are just not the same. So while there are good conversations to have about when nationwide injunctions should be used and when they should not be used, this is not the comparison that you want to make. Donald Trump is the most lawless president that this country has ever seen. And these nationwide injunctions have been one of the tools who have been been used to try to hold this administration accountable. So then they go on where he continues to berate her and says, well, I know you hate this president, but can you give me a principle that I can work with here?
Principle. I understand you hate the president. I understand you love all of these rulings against him. You and I both know that's not a principle. You're a lawyer. What's the principle that divides when issuing a nationwide injunction is okay, when it's not? When the Biden administration was subject to nationwide injunctions, you said that they were travesties for the principle of democracy. You didn't say the referral to Judge Kaczmarek was a travesty. You said his injunction was a travesty for principles of democracy. Yeah. So, in other words, the translation is just you didn't like the outcome. Is that right?
No, Senator. Look, we're talking about, I don't think Article 3 precludes this form of relief. So we are talking about prudential considerations.
Prudential meaning political?
No.
Then give me, so far I have yet to hear it. You've been questioned by multiple senators. I have yet to hear a principle other than the fact when you like the ruling, you think it's great to apply it nationally, including non-parties. When you don't like the ruling, it is a travesty for the principles of democracy, notions of judicial impartiality, and the rule of law.
Look, Senator, I'll say I think I am self-aware enough to know that my view of the underlying legal question, I am sure, colors my perception of the remedy. I think that we should all acknowledge that. And yet I do think
and
that
why shouldn't we stop nationwide injunctions for everybody?
I think
That's what we're talking about today.
Because I'm not willing to leave without relief non-parties who are
you're not
injured.
willing to leave without the ability to bind President Trump.
No, I
right?
think that...
I mean, when it's Biden, it's okay. When it's Biden, oh, it's a travesty. When it's Trump in office, it's, oh, no holds barred, whatever it takes, right?
I believe in a powerful...
What was it that President Biden's staff said? We've got to do undemocratic, unconstitutional things to save democracy. Why is this the same
I believe
thing?
in a powerful president. I do believe in presidential power, but power and constraint are not at fundamental odds.
What is the principle? What is the principle? The legal principle.
Again, just not giving any time to allow her to answer the question. And he's just trying to put words in her mouth. Oh, you just think it's okay when a Republican gets shut down. You just want to be able to take all this stuff out on Trump. But what Josh Hawley is arguing for here is that Donald Trump should be able to do whatever the hell that he wants to do. They think that Donald Trump shouldn't be allowed to be held accountable by any of these judges. That is why they are arguing so fervently against these nationwide injunctions, even though when Biden was in office, they were happy to use these nationwide injunctions to try to strike whatever Biden was doing down. So they're just hypocritical. They're unprincipled losers, and they just don't understand the difference between somebody like Donald Trump and somebody like Joe Biden. We are living in different worlds at this time. So Kate Shaw then finally puts the smack down on Josh Hawley when he tries to catch her in a gotcha.
Once Trump came into office for the first time, you don't think this is a little bit anomalous? You don't think that's a little bit strange?
A very plausible explanation, Senator, you have to consider is that he is engaged in much more lawless activity than other presidents, right?
You don't think
you must
this was never
possibility.
used before the 1960s, and suddenly Democrat judges decide we love the nationwide injunction, and then when Biden comes to office, no, actually.
It's Republican appointees as well, Senator, and the 1960s is where some scholars sort of locate the beginning of this.
Can you identify one before then?
Mila Sahoni, who's another scholar of universal injunction, suggests 1913 is actually the first, and others in the 20s.
The Republic endured for 150 years before there was a nationwide injunction.
Well, the federal government was doing a lot less until 100 years ago. So there's many things that have changed in the last 100 or the last 50 years.
So long as it is a Democrat president in office, then we should have no nationwide injunctions. If it's a Republican president, then this is absolutely fine, warranted, and called for. How can our system of law survive on those principles, Professor?
I think a system in which there are no meaningful constraints on the president is a very dangerous system of law.
That's not what...
So I know it was probably hard to hear her, but she said a system without meaningful constraints on the president is a very dangerous system of law. Now, we should all be able to agree on this. But Josh Hawley is arguing that these nationwide injunctions, well, they shouldn't be allowed for Donald Trump. And then he tries to point to this chart saying, well, Donald Trump, he got shot down 96% of the time. You don't think this is a bit anomalous? And she got back with the perfect response. Well, maybe because Donald Trump is breaking the law more than any other president that we've ever seen. And everybody knows that that is the case. He shows no fidelity to the Constitution. He shows no fidelity to the rule of law. And Donald Trump just thinks he shouldn't be held accountable and should be able to do whatever the hell he wants to do. Now, Josh Hawley tries to say that, this is just a Democrat judge thing, just a whole bunch of activists. But that's not even true either. Democracy Docket recently put out this article where they went over the ideological makeup of these appointed judges, right? And so if you see here, 72.2% were appointed by Republicans and 80.4% were appointed by Democrats. So it doesn't matter where you go in the country. It doesn't matter whether you're a Democrat, a Republican, an independent, or judges who were appointed by Trump himself. Everybody around the country is looking at this administration and this illegal power grab, and they're saying, you can't do that. Donald Trump is the most lawless president that our country has ever seen. He He is violating the Constitution day in and day out. He's trying to round people up without any due process and ship them out of the country to an El Salvadoran gulag. He's trying to impound funds that have already been appropriated by Congress, which is blatantly illegal. He's trying to fire tens of thousands of federal employees. He's just lawless. He has no respect for the rule of law. He has no respect for the Constitution. Donald Trump wants to be a king, and he has proven that day in and day out by all of the different things that he tries to get away with under this second administration. And I want to just go ahead and open the floor to Kate Shaw there, because one of the senators actually gave her some time to speak, and I think she kind of sums it up pretty well.
Maybe I'll just finish what I started saying at the end, which is in a number of the questions today, there has been this embedded premise that there's something democratically troubling about judges issuing these nationwide injunctions, constraining the democratically elected president. And I guess I would just say in response that, we have a constitutional democracy, so the people are sovereign, and that's, the sovereignty flows from the people, and we do choose our elected representatives, but obviously we choose our representatives in Congress. Congress passes statutes, the president signs them, and many of the rulings we are talking about were predicated on executive branch violations of statutes that Congress passed. So the rulings in many ways are about protecting and reinforcing democracy. And then finally, I'll say that, courts are part of our democracy, right? They have served this rights protecting and democracy facilitating function from basically the beginning, whatever the original design of the Constitution was. And it is not undemocratic or anomalous for courts to sometimes strike down acts of the president or of Congress when they conflict with the fundamental law, which is the Constitution, which in our system, courts have long had the primary role in enforcing.
And in fact, just as a footnote to this conversation, Congress has an obligation to follow the Constitution too, correct?
Absolutely. The president does, Congress does. Every official, state and federal, takes an oath to uphold the Constitution, but where that oath does not appear to be fully honored by one or more other actors in government, sometimes courts do need to step into the breach. I think that is what we have been seeing.
Yeah, she's exactly right. Donald Trump is a bad faith actor in our system. He is the one who is not honoring his oath to the Constitution. And we are supposed to have these three co-equal branches of government, right? So to say that the judicial branch is doing something wrong by trying to hold this administration accountable for violating the Constitution or violating different laws, that is just a fundamental misunderstanding of how our system is supposed to work. And I like that Senator Blumenthal also pointed out that Congress, they've got to abide by the laws too. They have to abide by the Constitution. And if it were Congress who were blatantly violating the Constitution like Donald Trump has been, they would be stepping into the breach and trying to hold them accountable as well. Because that is how our democracy is supposed to work. If the president is unlawful, if the president is trying to end birthright citizenship with the stroke of a pen, the courts are supposed to stand up and put a stop to that type of behavior. They are the ones who are supposed to be interpreting whether or not something is lawful or not, or unconstitutional or not. Now, I am here to say that there are good conversations to be had about when nationwide injunctions should be used. That is a lot of power to give a single judge in a single district. But in this case, when you've got such a lawless president, it is a crucial tool to try to hold this administration accountable. And it is like I said, it's one of the only backstops that we have seen to try to hold Trump accountable in any way at all. So to try to call this out as some sort of anomalous thing, it's just an attack on Donald Trump, is just fundamentally wrong. Donald Trump is the lawless one. Donald Trump is the one who has no fidelity or no respect for our Constitution or our rule of law. And therefore, the other two branches are supposed to step up and check that authoritarian power. So I will leave it there for now, guys. If you guys got anything out of this video, please do remember to smash that like button and subscribe. Maybe share with a friend or two. Very much appreciate that. We are trying to build something here on the left that adequately pushes back against the right-wing media ecosystem that just launders this authoritarian nonsense for Donald Trump every single day. So if you do like what I do here, please remember to smash that subscribe button. Of course, that is free. And if you guys want to see how the billionaires, Elon Musk and Donald Trump, are now at each other's throats in an all-out war, go ahead and watch that video on the screen now. Otherwise, I'll see you guys on the next one.